and welcome back to the Holistically Awakened podcast. I'm your host, Laurence, and today I am joined by Trish Lynn, and we're going to get into a pretty deep convo around business, but also so much more. So I'm so excited to have this talk with you today, Trish.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So I know that you are all about business, but you're also about so many other things like nervous system regulation. And I know you've spoken about relationships before on your social media. So I'd love to hear, like, first of all, what do you do, and how did you really get into this work?
So I am what I have now deemed a business therapist because there's so much more to business growth than a strategy and a content strategy. And that is my main focus. That is the reason a lot of my clients come to me and find me. But underneath the layers and the levels, it's not the content strategy that they are needing. Yeah, there's sometimes a little bit of tweaks that need to be done, but usually it's like the deeper inner work. And that comes from a lot of my past experience in a toxic relationship and learning that I didn't get to have a voice. My nervous system was all over the place. And now I'm watching women bring that in to their businesses and they're not seeing the success and the results that they want to see. So really diving deep, not only into the strategy side of things where we build that foundation, but your energetic side of things where we get to go deeper and heal those things so that not only do you get to create your success, you get to sustain it.
Yeah, 100%. And I can totally relate to this because I've definitely experienced this in my own life and business as well. And I think that many of us, I mean, for me, it doesn't even matter if you're an entrepreneur or you're in business. Nervous system dysregulation will affect all of us. And oftentimes it's the piece that's missing when, like you said, like the strategy isn't working, or you're taking all of this action, you're hustling, but it's just like I should be getting way farther than I am. So I'd love for you to, maybe, whether it's your own experience or what you've seen in clients, what are like signs of nervous system dysregulation? Like it's an issue within that, whether it's like physical symptoms or business related symptoms, like what are things that you've noticed, that you've experienced? Because oftentimes, like, there's a lot of nervous system dysregulation talk all over the place, but a lot of people might be like, what the heck does that even mean?
Yeah. So that's a big piece is, yeah, everyone's talking about nervous system right now, and there's so many different aspects that your nervous system comes into play. So specifically with business, we have fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fight is, that constant need for external validation, working and working like that hustle to prove that, hey, like I'm worth this. That's fight. That's your body saying, "Hey, yeah, you're not doing a good enough job. Keep going because you have to do more and more and more." You're not feeling safe to actually trust that the people get to come into you. Flight, constant pivoting. If you are chasing strategy after strategy after strategy, I am like 100% guilty of this. And this is how I began to recognize, oh my God, like it's not me. My strategy was on point. And I actually went through this a couple months ago now because I was questioning myself and I'm like, oh shit, we're going through a recalibration. Like my strategy, I had someone dive into my social medias and she's like, your strategy, there's no flaws. I'm like, perfect. I knew it. I needed to hear it because, when you've been in a toxic relationship, that survival mode is so wired in. You sometimes don't even recognize, oh my gosh, I'm falling back into these same routines, these same thought patterns. But that constant pivoting, that constant chasing strategy after strategy, thinking, okay, if it's not this strategy, it's the next one. Or when something doesn't go your way and you're like, oh, what did I do wrong? It's not you. But we are wired to think that it's us. Freeze, when you're feeling stuck or if you feel like lost, like nothing is working. And fawn, over delivering and not setting boundaries, avoiding those boundaries. So like being on call 24/7, there's a lot of coaches and women and entrepreneurs who are like, oh yeah, just call me whenever. And you're there because you think that if you're not going to be there, you're going to lose that person.
Yeah, I think I can relate to all of them in the past as well. I think it's so common, and it's also common for us to sort of be conditioned to sort of fall into that. For example, with the people pleasing, perfectionism, like over delivering and everything. Um, But I'd love to know, because I know you mentioned toxic relationship, which obviously is also like a certain circumstance that can definitely put you into dysregulation for sure. But maybe not everyone relates with that specifically. Like, what are other things that could put you into the fight, flight, or freeze? Because I know obviously there's so many factors, obviously, that can, affect this, right?
There's so many pieces that come into play. It doesn't have to just be a toxic relationship for me. That's my experience, so that's where I share a lot. But your environment, societal conditioning, where you grew up, how you were raised, your parents' beliefs pushed down on you that when, you're trying to grow something and you're stepping out of what's normal, quote unquote normal, it's going to throw your nervous system into, oh shit, this isn't safe. I'm not used to this. Your nervous system likes normal. Your nervous system likes feeling safe. So if you are now stepping out of that comfort zone and doing something that doesn't feel safe, your nervous system is like, oh yeah, no, we got to protect you.
Yeah, and
It,
that's actually something that happened to me. This was like 3 years ago when I started to actually see success in my business, and things were like starting to ramp up. And I started to get more visible, like started to talk more like my truth and just kind of like, yeah, become more seen. And there was a bunch of things going on, certain things I was sharing about online that certain people didn't like. And then there was also certain clients that were not a match. And that was also really dysregulating to me. And that's when I just kind of like, I didn't burn it all to the ground, but I could have. But I definitely just sort of sabotaged. And I went through this whole sort of dark night of the soul, like freeze, like all the things. And it took a lot of healing to like, so much shit went on. And so that's another thing that can really happen that I don't think we talk about a lot. Like there is a lot of success of fear of failure and everything, but the fear of success, like being seen, being visible, like that can definitely take you out if you're not prepared, you're not careful, you don't have the awareness around it, right?
yeah, that's such a big one, for me. And again, I'm going to relate it back to being in a toxic relationship because in that relationship, I was never allowed to have an opinion. I was never allowed to have a voice. So now stepping out onto social media, trying to actually say the things I want to say, well, there's a part of me that's like, I can't say that. And it's saying it. So it's being mindful and like really anchoring into practices to keep myself grounded, to keep my nervous system regulated, to recognize when, it's starting to pull me back into safety and I'm starting to self-sabotage because that's one of the biggest things we do. And a lot of this is really that self-recognition, right? If your nervous system is not feeling safe, you are going to sabotage yourself. So really, like for anyone who's listening in, really pay attention to the things that are going on. When you launch something new, do you panic and all of a sudden go, oh no, I can't launch this. Like, what am I doing? I have to pull this. Or you start spiraling, no one's gonna buy, who's gonna want to work with me? All of those things are dysregulated nervous system. And this is where we see a lot of people, women, and I work with women, so we'll go with that. But people fail in the business online because they get into these spirals and then they doubt themselves and then they pull back or they sabotage in some way.
Yeah, and that kind of makes me think of like the sisterhood wound or the witch wound, where it's just like burnt at the stake kind of thing. Like I think we all generationally, I can't even say the word, carry this like on a subconscious level as
Yeah.
well. So it's also noticing like what are our own fears that might come from like family or things like that, or even just, our own life circumstances and events from the past. But then what are things that we like carry from generations? And there's a whole bunch of stuff that we don't have awareness of until we have awareness around it. But
Yeah.
that's where like I think a lot of awareness around all of this and having like that compassion for ourselves as well and being able to take that time to actually acknowledge like the things that we're doing because it's also not easy. I think it's also easy to think that like oh yeah, building a business, showing up online is easy. Like most people don't do it. Let's just be honest. And it's like not
Hard.
easy.
It's not easy because we're stepping out of our comfort zone still every day to show up online. And for me, it's really building from an authentic place. So sometimes it's sitting on my couch in the morning in my pajamas still, so I don't even have a bra on, no makeup, my hair's not brushed. But sharing from that authentic place, you guys, that's not the easiest thing to do. Like, I look like a piece of shit. Hey, thanks. But, still being in my truth and sharing the things that I want to say. So I have, taken this mantra, and this is like my life. My impact is greater than my fear. Because I know, like, in those moments, the things I have to say, the people who need to hear it need to hear it. So it doesn't matter what I look like, they're going to resonate with my words, not the hot mess that I am. But yeah, it's really not an easy place. So stepping out of your comfort zone to be able to say the things and do the things, and it's a lot, and it throws your nervous system out of whack, and a lot of people keep pushing through and pushing through and pushing through. Well, that leads to burnout, and now you've got a dysregulated nervous system and burnout.
Yeah, so one thing I want to touch on, because we're obviously on the topic, is how to manage this, because it's not just like there's no point of being Delulu and bypassing like everybody loves me. Like there probably is going to be one person at least who's not going to like it. Maybe there'll be a troll. Like the thing is, for ambitious women, we're going to start showing up, being seen, sharing our truth, and that also comes with being seen by more people. And then obviously some people are not going to like it. So this is where, we have to also come face to face with the truth of like, if you're going down this path, it is important to not just be like la 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 land and just have your head in the
Yeah.
clouds. So like, how do you actually manage that fear of like, coming face to face with that, if that makes sense?
One, you've got to, so I say this to my clients, I said this a couple times on the socials, but when the trolls come out, you know you're making enough noise. There's always going to be people that don't agree with the things that you're saying or don't agree with the way that you do things. That's great. That's because they have their own perception of seeing the things that you do. And can you actually have an open conversation about it? Because I would love to learn your way of doing things and how you are perceiving what I'm saying. But when you make enough noise, that's how you know you're truly being seen. The trolls come out. Now you've got to face that fear of, oh my God, the trolls are out. What do I do? It means nothing about you and everything about them and where they are at. And you have to get yourself to that level of knowing that it literally means nothing about you in every aspect of life. I've had this conversation with friends. I very recently had this conversation with family because everyone likes to take things that other people say about them and make it about them. Like, this literally means nothing about you. It's not about you at all. If you don't like me, well, that's on you because I'm pretty fucking cool. But that's your perception.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think it's really a muscle that you build, right? Like
it
you get
is.
stronger
Yeah.
over time.
And it's
You have to get your first troll to be able
you
to
do. You
get
do.
over
And you're
it.
gonna go through it and you're gonna be like, oh my God, she doesn't like me. What did I do wrong? And you're gonna go into that spiral. And then you remember, hey, my impact is greater than my fear. Bam, you're back. The fear, get used to rejection. When you are in a business in the online space, get used to rejection. You hear more no's than you do yeses when it comes to marketing. And this actually it just came up for me very recently. And I was like, I caught myself in an old pattern. And I'm like, okay, this is good. These women are not meant for this space. This means nothing about me. Maybe my messaging was a little off. Maybe there's something that needs tweaking, but ultimately doesn't mean they're saying no because they hate me. The rejection is like a form of protection. They are not meant to be there.
Yeah, I just want to say two things about this. One is the block button is always there. So like sometimes you just have to
Yeah.
protect your peace and your boundaries. Like especially when it comes to like our social media platforms, this is basically my home, podcast, Instagram,
That's it.
etc. If you don't like it and you're attacking me, then I might have to use that button, right? So
I
there is a part of that, I think that's
yeah.
important.
I had someone show up talking so much trash on my Facebook. And I was at my son's hockey, and I'm like, okay, like I'm really not having this conversation right now. And everyone, so I put my phone away and I come back, and so many people who follow me were on it. Like, I didn't even have to say anything and speak up. They were on it. And like, that is such a good feeling. I didn't block her. I wished her well in her business.
Yeah, and I think that's also a big important piece of like you have one troll, but then look at this community that is backing you. And I think that's obviously the human brain focuses on the negative due
Yeah.
to survival instincts. But, maybe those are the moments where you need to go look at your saved folder of like testimonials or love mess. I have actually a folder called love messages where it's like I just keep screenshots of like messages where there's been an impact with clients or even like messages from like my boyfriend where it's like, there's nice messages. So then it's sort of a reminder of like what's the impact you're making and the ratio. It's like there's going to be a lot less people who dislike you versus who are actually following you because they like you. And the other piece is I think that we also have to just come to terms, and this is something I've just had to, remind myself over time, because sometimes it is just easier to just be like, I think I'm going to go back to the 9 to 5 and just be invisible. But then you really have to ask yourself, is it actually more uncomfortable? Because for me, it's way more uncomfortable to be like, what if? And this is kind of like a boring, unfulfilling life. So I'm just going to have to, deal with the consequences of being more seen, etc. Because there's always going to be a price to pay, right?
There's always going to be something,
Yeah.
someone who's like, well, I don't like what you're doing. You shouldn't be doing it.
No matter what you're doing, doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur,
Doesn't
you work a
matter
nine to
whether
five.
that's it. In a
Yeah.
9 to 5,
That's
it's
the
the same
world.
thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so I also wanted to bring up how business and relationships can really bring up your shit. They can just regulate you further and they can also help you heal. I've also seen both sides to it, like dysregulating me and causing a whole, bring up a whole bunch of shit. But then also, I think lots of entrepreneurs can relate to the fact that entrepreneurship is the biggest personal development journey you'll ever go on because it's a huge mirror to you as well as relationships. So it's really interesting how they are similar in the way that they will be a mirror to all of your shit that you've hidden.
Every fear, entrepreneurship is personal development on steroids. Because every fear that you have is going to come up. Every, doubt that you have in yourself is going to surface. Your relationships get to amplify so much of that because a lot of people, and I've just started dating again. And, for me, that's come up of a lot of men don't understand what it is to be an entrepreneur. No, I don't work a 9 to 5. If I want to sit for a couple hours in the morning and work, that's what I do. But if I also want to sit, for an hour in the evening and catch up on messages, see what's going on Facebook, see what's going on Instagram, see what's going on TikTok, because I've just gotten myself into the TikTok game. But that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm not gonna be made to feel guilty about it. And I had someone question me once about it, and I'm like, wait a second. You don't pay my bills. I do. But it's still, relationships can still trigger those pieces where you feel guilty because you're putting into yourself. My business is mine. So for me, it's putting into me. It's putting into my kids, and I'm not going to be made to feel guilty about that.
Yeah, I love that aspect because it really just shows us like what our values are. And it's also going to show us like what we need to heal. And oftentimes it is like the self-worth piece, the people pleasing, all of this stuff will show up in relationships and business. And it's really about just like doing the work. And I think a lot of people think that doing the work is like just meditating and doing breath work like once a week or whatever. But it's really about in those uncomfortable moments, like what are you choosing? And it's also being not too hard on yourself. Like, for example, there are moments where I will react instead of respond. And then I'm like, oh shit, there's that pattern. But I caught myself, even if it was after, because next time there will definitely be a different response, right? So that is also the work. I think sometimes we can guilt trip ourselves for like, ah, shit, I thought I was over that, or I wish I didn't react that way, or whatever I did. I wish I didn't go down that rabbit hole or whatever. But
Yeah.
the awareness is already you doing the work,
Yeah.
right?
And that's the work. And, asking yourself the question, oh my gosh, setting the boundaries. Like, this is such a huge piece when it comes to business and when it comes to your relationships. Getting back into dating, I have set some pretty strong boundaries, and I had to end a relationship because he didn't want to abide by the boundary that I had set. And I straight up said, it means nothing about you. means absolutely nothing about you. I just love myself more because there
Yeah.
were things, yeah, I wasn't going to tolerate, and you didn't want to listen to it.
Yeah, I think boundaries as well are it's probably one of the hardest things as women. But
Yeah.
once we start doing it, it's almost like addictive because it just feels so good. Like,
It
for example, in my
feels
business,
so
like
good.
saying no, like, and then
Yeah.
having like times where it's like, no, I'm actually not available at those times. And before it was really uncomfortable for me. And now I'm just like, I just say it and I literally feel nothing. It just feels like
That's
normal.
it. And it's, and if you can learn to do that in your relationships, it does make it easier in business. You're like, oh yeah, I'm used to this. This isn't abnormal for me to say no, 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 I'm sorry, I can't respond to you. Or if I'm busy and someone messages me and I see that they've messaged me, I will send a quick message. I'm busy at the moment. When I actually have the capacity to read and respond to you with what you're saying, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, and then, obviously every container is different, every relationship is different, but sometimes I think because we're all so connected, like our phone, we're like literally attached to the hip on our phones 24/7, and it's almost like as soon as a message comes in, we think we need to respond to it, but and I'm actually really good now at not responding to messages right away, unless it's an emergency, but then you're going to call me if it's an emergency. And like, how
Exactly.
often is it an emergency,
My phone lives on silent. And as an entrepreneur, if you have your business in the online space, another, piece of survival mode, or it's even a lack mentality, is putting something out there and sitting, waiting by your phone. Like, is the messages coming through? Are people liking it? Are they getting views? Like, is someone going to join my program? That's a survival mechanism. You're not trusting. So you are dysregulating your own nervous system in that state out of fear and panic that you're not going to get those results. And what you do then, you create more of that lack, right? What you focus on persists. So when you are sitting waiting, no messages are coming in. Well, that's the story now you're telling yourself. Nothing's coming in, no messages are coming in. You've got to get out and do something. You have to get out and do something, move your body, think of something else. Like I have anchored into my yoga practice minimum 4 days a week because it helps me get out of my head and into my body. And usually by the time I am done, I am dead on my mat because it's a hot yoga class. And now that it's getting warmer out, it's like even hotter. My eyeballs have been sweating some weeks. I'm like, I didn't even know I could sweat this much on my face.
Wow, in
But,
Canada too.
right? But it gets you out of your mind because now you're like, oh my gosh, I have to breathe or I'm not going to be able to do this. And in those moments, your whole body gets to relax.
Yeah, I totally agree. I am just so religious with my walks. I do at least three throughout the day. And sometimes I'll be in a spiral or I'll be like overthinking something, like, oh, this isn't performing well, whatever, like you said. And I'll just go on a walk and then I'll be like, I feel completely different on the way back. Tapping, breath work, whatever you need to do, yoga. I think body-based exercises are really awesome. And I think it's also a really good point of what you made in terms of, creating that stress yourself because we really create that cortisol response through thought alone. Like, oh, this post isn't doing well, cortisol, So it's really checking ourselves with that mindset, obviously, like what are the thoughts? What am I making it mean? And then I think the other point with entrepreneurship and being like, on the online space, as many people can relate, is it's really hard to have the boundary between like work and like I'm off work because you could literally never be off work as an entrepreneur because you can check your phone till you go to bed, right? So that's where it's like having a separation, I think, is really important. Or even like after this time, I do not go on, having some sort of boundary for like that mental health aspect. Otherwise, if you're looking at your emails all day long, all night long, you're just going to be constantly in that fight or flight, right?
Yeah. And it's that I think is one of the hardest things to do. I have actually contemplated recently deleting Instagram on the weekends.
Yeah.
Just so
I've done
that
detox days. It's the best.
yeah, just so that like we're in such a world of social media, but when your business is your social media and your social media is your business, it's hard not to get caught up into it and want to just oh yeah, let's go on and see. And then you're like, oh, what's she doing? Oh, then you get into comparison. You're like, oh my God, what I'm doing isn't good enough. Oh my God, what if no one wants to be a part of this because she's doing this and I'm doing this and she's got more experience and she makes more money than I do. And there's so many little thoughts that throw us into that dysregulated state. I had this happen to me yesterday, literally yesterday. I launched something. I was like, oh my God, I am about to spiral. I left, I went to the beach. I'm like, I cannot do this because we're always going to have that bit of self-doubt. It's human nature. We're doing things and we're creating movements that have like they've never been done. And if they have been done, they haven't been done the way we're doing it because our story is our story and no one else has that same story.
Yeah, I love that. And it's really about getting clear on like what are the boundaries that you need to set because we're all going to be different, right? So really getting honest with yourself and looking at like what and sometimes there are seasons where it's like I'm going to be working later, but obviously there needs to be boundaries set in place, especially when it comes to like chronically what are you doing? And one thing I did want to sort of get into is how the coaching, sort of switching gears here, how the coaching industry can be dysregulating and toxic and how to navigate it. Because for me, at the beginning, I started to get into heavily investing into myself, into, business coaching and masterminds and all these things. And at one point, I basically worked with a guy who went really hard into the masculine and it was not what I needed. And then at one point, that's where I sort of like sabotaged and burnt out.
Yeah.
And it was almost this like, that was the time of kind of like the shame marketing of like, just do it and just like push through. And obviously, there is a time and a place to be like, push through and just do it. But I think it also needs to be balanced with like understanding what my capacity is, my nervous system, and that feminine approach, which is why I started to be very discerning with like who I would invest in after. Um, and then there was the whole approach of like, getting you to sign an agreement or even pay, for example, a coaching container, pay like right on the call. And it was this pressure of like, if you're serious about this, and I was just like so dysregulated, it would put me into like a fight or flight response. And then at one point I had to sort of, understand that that does not work for me. I need space and I need to work with someone who actually understands that. So that brought me into the whole feminine masculine approach to business and everything. So long story short, it can be toxic, and I think a lot of us have had not so great experiences, which is why there's a lot more discernment in the coaching industry, which is good because we do need to be discerning, obviously, with where we invest our time and energy. So I'd love to hear like what your thoughts are on that in terms of like how the coaching industry can be dysregulating and toxic. But also, I do also want to emphasize how there's like an amazing community, including yourself, of people who know what they're doing, they have awareness, and they don't approach things like that either.
The
Yeah.
coaching industry blew up. Like it absolutely blew up. So when COVID hit, that's when I made the pivot into content marketing. I was a nutrition coach and a health coach. I was dabbling in content because it was something that just came easily and naturally to me. And then I had a client pay me in full for 6 months of work for weight loss, and you couldn't buy food. So I'm like, well, we have two options. I can refund you, which, by the way, a lot of coaches don't do. They don't like once you pay, they don't want to give you your money back. There's so much fear-based marketing that I gave her those two options. We pivoted into content and she ended up signing two clients within a month. But I learned very early on the coach I didn't want to be because there is so much bypassing. There's so much gaslighting. There's so much fear-based marketing. Or at one point in time, it was, invest in yourself if you're actually serious about your growth. If you don't invest, you're not serious. Well, who like that is to me emotional manipulation. And it's not something that I believe in. The fear-based tactics of, even I'm guilty of this because I did it, but a countdown or a pre-sale or like a pre-sale and it's ending. And for me, to me, that's a fear-based tactic to get someone to jump in now. And I just launched a group program with another lady, and we both agreed because I'm like, I don't want a pre-sale. If you want to buy the program now, you should get it for the same price as someone who wants to buy it, the day before. Because the way social media works and marketing works, I might launch a pre-sale today and talk about it for the next month, but you might not see it until, the month is almost up. That's how the algorithm works. The content I post today isn't being seen today for a lot of people. It's being seen a week from now or 2 weeks from now. And then, it's that, oh, well, you didn't sign up then, you don't get the lower price. To me, that's a fear-based, it's just icky. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like any of those tactics. They don't work for me.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to like be discerning of when you are looking for a coach, like these sorts of things, and also taking the time to be able to like build a relationship with them as well, which is why I do like to have like calls with people. And I think that's really important. Obviously, every container is different, every coach is different. Like some people will do sales calls, some people won't. But obviously, also feeling like the vibe of like if you have that pressure, then especially as women, I'm just like fight or flight energy. And
That's
like you
it.
mentioned too, there's a lot of like discount stuff like you have 24 hours and for me it's like I need longer than that like
Yeah.
you know what I mean,
Yeah,
so
I'm
yeah
not
I
going
think
to be
it's important
forced
to
into
realize that.
it. Yeah. And where I was going in the beginning when I shared about that one client, I worked with a coach and I was targeted into her program. And I didn't realize it at the time because I thought it was the greatest thing. But then I look back, it's like, oh my gosh, she literally targeted me to get in and make her numbers. A lot of coaches lead with numbers. Well, I don't lead with numbers because my numbers aren't going to be your numbers, right? But I ended up ending the coaching container and I was still paying her for 2 months after that. To me, that's not, I don't even know the word I'm looking for right now. I don't agree with it. If it's not a good balance and it's not working, it should be cut. We should cut ties and energetically be able to, keep that peace between us and no bad blood.
Yeah, so in terms of if somebody is looking for a coach, like what would be your recommendation of like what to look out for and things like that, because there's by no means are we obviously trashing the industry because we are part of the industry. We love the industry, but we definitely want there to be like integrity and discernment and all of that because unfortunately, like any industry, there are some people who will kind of tarnish the reputation because they're not doing things in integrity and all of that. And I think you and I are really heart-led entrepreneurs and we care about results that people get. And it's not just about the money. So I'd love for you to share, like, what do you think is important for people? Because I think people are being more discerning, but it's really not about discouraging them of not finding like the right support, but also finding the right support, right?
Do your research. Sit in that space. Sit in. I'm going to use me as an example. Sit on my socials, watch, interact, engage, and see how I interact back with you. Does it feel good? Do you like it? Do you like the way I talk? Like, that's a big thing. I've watched some coaches and I've been in their spaces and I'm like, I don't even like the way you talk. Why would I sign up for your space? But it's something so small, but it's going to build that connection. You want to see yourself working with someone that you can build a connection with. And then jump into the DMs, have an actual conversation. If you feel like you need a sales call to build or see where that connection is at, and they're not willing to have a sales call with you, then that should be a red flag. I don't generally do sales calls, but if I am asked to jump on a call so we can, see if we connect, 100% I'm going to. It's a part of, to me, that's customer service. It's the basics.
Yeah, it's actually giving a shit about the people
Yeah.
who you serve. Yeah.
And even if you like if you work with me or if you don't work with me, I'm gonna give you my thoughts and opinions anyways, because I want to see you succeed.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's also important to notice that like not everyone will be for everyone. Maybe
Yeah.
my voice annoys you. That's totally fine. Maybe Trisha's voice is like,
It's annoying.
music
You're
to your
like,
ears. So,
Or you're like, oh, her voice is annoying. Oh, her dog's in everything. My dog is in like everything I do because she doesn't leave my side. That's why I had to shut the door because she was gonna come in.
but then some people will love that, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like just being true to you and being in integrity. And I think the other thing is, I think it's easy to think like, oh, I have to do business this way. I have to do the, timer of 24-hour sale or whatever complicated funnel, or I can only do DMs. I can't do sales calls or vice versa, or whatever. Everyone's making it up. There are a billion ways to do business. And I think this is something I learned the hard way. It's really coming back to like what feels true for me, not because this person says the only way to do it. So I think that's really important to like question it before just taking everything as face value, right?
Yeah, that is the biggest thing that I focus on in my business because there are a million strategies out there. But if you don't feel safe in the strategy that you are following, if it doesn't feel easy and effortless for you, it's not the strategy for you. And I tried the webinars, I tried the master classes, I tried the emails, and it doesn't feel good. I would rather sit on social media for an hour and actually go interact with people and build real connections. I do a lot of networking events because I love building those connections. And that networking event doesn't lead to a sale, but it leads to a connection that becomes a referral.
Yeah, I love that. I also had to learn the same thing. Just like, I actually hate doing this, so I'm not going to do it anymore. I actually like
Yeah.
doing this. And I think it takes experimentation as well. But it's kind of like nutrition, fitness, like you could try the strategies do work. They could all work, but what is going to work for you at the end of the
And
day?
that's the biggest piece. You know, you just said it with nutrition or with fitness. If you are someone who has been in a toxic relationship and you go throw yourself into cardio 5 days a week, well, you're not helping regulate your nervous system. You're actually making it worse.
Yeah. And that's a big thing with women. I see like we're overdoing it, even the
Yeah.
healthy stuff.
Yeah.
And we don't think we're stressed, but it's like, okay, you're skipping meals, you're eating low carb, you're doing the hit, you go to bed late, like your body is just like, it's
Your
too
body's
much.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it does it. And then, it does the exact opposite. And you end up, you're trying to lose weight, but now you're putting weight on because you've stressed your body out to such an extent. It's the same with business. It is the exact same. I noticed I was actually struggling to lose weight. And a lot of it came down to not, I went back into my yoga practice, nothing else, because everything else was stressing out my body. And we feel like we have to have these hard practices. It comes back to business too, because we feel like we have to do all of these things, but those things are stressing us out and dysregulating us. And
Yep.
then we gain the weight, we're not getting the sleep, we're exhausted, we're overworking. We feel like we have to just keep going and pushing through. And then we don't get the results. Then we throw ourselves into that pattern of it's not working. I've got to swap up my strategy. Well, what's next? I need the money to come in. And it's that downward spiral.
So how do we stop this cycle of hustling, burnout? Like in terms, because obviously for women who are ambitious, that maybe they're running a business, maybe they want to, maybe they're just really career driven. It's not about putting that aside and being like, fuck my ambitions. I can't achieve anything. I think we can have a balance, but it's really about like, even when it comes to the nutrition piece and the health, for me, it was coming to terms with the masculine way is not going to work. I do have to learn more about like my feminine energy, my female cycle, hormones, all of that. And I think it also is the same with business to a certain extent, where it's like, it's not going to be the exact same of what we learned, like just hustle to the ground. And like women don't want that anymore. Like we're just over it. So, like, how do we stop this cycle or like what else is possible as a business owner?
It starts in your mind. So much of what we do starts in your mind of what is possible for you. If you don't think it's possible to actually put your laptop away and take an afternoon off, you're not going to be able to do it. You are in such a dysregulated state. If you have, like for me, my funnel, and we can see all these elaborate funnels. Mine is the simplest funnel. My content goes out. I have genuine conversations in the DMs that lead to sales. I don't overwork myself. I plan my content out. And, when you can step back, if you're feeling, this is a big one, a lack of clarity. So many people come to me, I don't know what to write. It's because you're not giving yourself the space to have that creativity flow. So we have to get rid of that hustle culture. We have to stop thinking we need to be on 24/7 because we don't need to be on 24/7. We need to be on, and when we're on, we need to be present. And then we need to check off and go do the things that light us up. Go for the walks, go to the yoga classes, go sit outside. If you're a mom, go play soccer with your kids. I did that all day Sunday and I didn't look at my phone, and it was the best thing. I was very sore afterwards because I was playing without shoes on, but the kids loved it. And it's in those moments, it's in the moments that you take that step back. And I wanted to share this earlier and then I forgot, and then we got talking about something else, but it's in that recognition. I had a moment a couple weeks ago. I was driving to yoga. So long story short, I got hit by a deer about 4 weeks ago now. My car was totaled. And in the process of buying a new car, I went into yoga a week ago. And now I walked in and I was like, I need a car. My yoga studio is now my manifestation portal. But on my way to yoga, I was thinking about the car. My car was standard. And I'm driving, I have my grandfather's truck, so it's an automatic. I'm driving down the hill and I'm like, oh my God, what if I get another standard car and I get stuck at the top of this hill and then I roll back into someone and I'm not able to go forward and then I hit them? I'm like, holy shit moment, I don't trust myself. I've driven this hill 100 times in my other car. I never rolled back and hit anyone, but I'm having this moment, this thought of, I don't trust myself. So it's in that awareness. Where are you not trusting yourself to put down the hustle and actually soften into the version of you, the identity of you that gets to show up and be present for a couple hours a day and then actually go live your life? We get into entrepreneurship to have that time freedom to not fit into a box, and then we fit ourselves into a box and we spend 24/7 on our phones trying to make it work. The make it work isn't in that hustle, it's in that feminine, let's take that step back and into our creativity, into our flow, into the fun. We lose the fun. When you lose the fun, you lose your magnetism.
I love that you mentioned that because I can totally relate to that as well. Because for me, it was also a realization of like, I don't actually want to make things work by burning out and hustling and being on 24/7. So if I'm going to make it work the other way, then I do have to apply the laws of the universe, masculine energy, masculine, feminine energetics in terms of manifestation, attraction, all of those things. So then you need to work with energy. And then obviously that comes from like the regulation, the doing things that, bring you to a higher levels of consciousness or the higher frequencies like love, joy, etc. So that was like the biggest resistance to me for so long when I was just like lack of clarity. It was just, I don't know. I have so much lack of clarity. And then I finally, after lots of different circumstances and people, trying to guide me there, decided to say, fuck it. Like I'm going to take space. And when I started to prioritize my energy, space, etc., then I was like, and then even like getting into different rooms of people who inspired me, doing things that lit me up, like changing the dynamic instead of just looking at my computer and trying to force stuff to come
Yeah.
through. And then I was like, oh, the clarity is here. It was just hilarious,
That's
even
it. And
though,
like
yeah.
the conversations that you start having, I talk, I share a lot of my stories because it's my experience, but it's also how I work through so much stuff. I will be sitting working on something and then a question pops into my head and I'm like, oh my God, this needs to be content. Like this is a question that I'm now asking myself, but this needs to be content. And so many women, a lot of my clients will sit and we'll just have conversations. I'm like, well, that's content. That's content. That's content. Don't tell me you don't know what to post about because everything that we are talking about is your story and is content that is going to help your audience connect with you.
Yeah. And for me, it was like sitting behind my computer and trying to force things was the most uninspiring, uncreative thing ever. go and live your life, like go do something. And then, oh, I have a content idea. So I totally agree with that. And I think the space is a big part of it. And there is really deprogramming of not having to be on all the time. And obviously that is the inner work that needs to take place. But I know that we're coming up to time, so I want to respect your time. But is there anything else you wanted to add or that you didn't yet, or just like a message to wrap up?
A lot of this work, like a lot of the nervous system work, obviously starts with your mindset and where your thoughts are going. So it's really big on that self-awareness. And when you are in, we talk about identity work a lot as well. I talk a lot about that and being the woman that you want to be and showing up as that version of her. And I asked myself this the other day, so I'll leave this with your audience as well. If you're in survival mode, do you really know who you are?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, it's really not the true us, right? It's just like a mask.
It is. It's you're this shell. You're still going through the movements and the motions of what you are used to survive in.
So it's time to let that go. Like, who could you be not in survival mode? You know,
What if?
what
It,
if?
I asked myself, I'm like, well, what if the 20K client came in? What if two of them came in? And this is the biggest thing. What if two of them came in? And for me, that was a resistance. I'm like, that would be 40K. I'm not worth 40K a month. Who was going to pay me 40K a month? And it was such a resistance that came up. So it's learning those pieces and then neutralizing them within your body to feel normal. Because, when we're going for higher income, I set a really high income month or goal for this year. And I had to neutralize it within my body of, I always have money sitting beside me everywhere to neutralize that money is always available. And what would it feel like if someone handed me $10,000 right now? What would I do? What would you do if someone were to hand you $10,000 right now? How would you feel? Would you feel worthy of it? Would you be able to accept it? Would you hand it back and say, no, I can't take this. I haven't done anything for it. It's all of these pieces and just recognizing how we're feeling, how we're thinking, the things that are, really in our body sitting there, our environment. Are we using our environment as an excuse? I still hide a lot of my environment because I've had my own moments as a single mom of three of not feeling worthy of sharing the life that I've created for myself. And it's all growth, and we get to share about it. I share about a lot of the pieces openly because this is the growth.
I love that. And I think it's really about, like you mentioned, it's normalizing a new normal. And I think we can normalize anything, but oftentimes it's going to be like little stretches, not like I'm making 5K and now I'm going to make 100. Like little
Right.
stretches are definitely good. And for me, it was really about even like, how can I receive a compliment? Money that my boyfriend sends me for no reason, or somebody opening the door or offering help. Like before, it'd be like, no. And then I was like, why do I just say no all the time? So I think even starting there with like, how do I receive things? Especially as women, we're really bad, really bad at that,
If
right?
you're independent and an empowered female, you do it all on your own because, again, it's a survival mechanism. You have learned to do it all on your own because you can't trust anyone else. And you have to be able to start opening up and trusting, asking for help when you need it. That is still one of the hardest things for me to do. And I've caught myself, and now I've caught, do you want some help with this? No, it's a yes, please.
Yeah. And it's going to
But
be uncomfortable at first. Maybe you will say no first, but like you said, maybe like, okay, maybe I'll just say yes. And then you just test it out. And then you just become like with the no. Now, no is like really easy for me to say, but it wasn't at the beginning. Right. I love that. Amazing. Well, I feel like we could talk forever, but I'd love for you to share how can we follow you, work with you, all of the things, let us know.
All of the things. I am Trish Lynn across the board, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and you can connect with me there. That's Trish Lynn on Instagram and TikTok, Trish Lynn on Facebook. I have one-on-one open available, an amazing group program that's open. I got a few things going on right now. So if you're interested, pop into my DMs. We can have a conversation about it.
Amazing. I'll put all the links in the YouTube and podcast so people can find you. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.